Untitled Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to this great state of ours. These beautiful plantation homes reflect the fascinating history of our culture and cuisine, and I'd like to share this story with you. Why not join me and some of my friends as we visit the plantation homes of our state and cook up another great Taste of Louisiana.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Louisiana Gold and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
In 1797, Donaldsonville was a small frontier town. The Acadians had arrived here from Nova Scotia only 10 years earlier, and it seemed the perfect setting for Dumas St. Martin and J.P. Viala to build their raised Acadian cottage. In the center of town, Viala Plantation, flowing from the Gulf of Mexico, emptied into the Mississippi River. It was for this reason that the pirate Jean Lafitte chose Donaldsonville and this home to not only store his contraband, but to allow his son and daughter to dwell. Legend has it that it was in this very building that Emma Viala, granddaughter of the builder, and the son of the infamous pirate married in the early 1800s. I'm Chef John Folse. Welcome to the old Viala Plantation, or as it's known today, Lafitte's Landing Restaurant. Located at the western approach to the Sunshine Bridge near Donaldsonville, Lafitte's Landing Restaurant is a perfect example of early raised Acadian cottage architecture. Slated for demolition in the early 1960s due to highway construction, the house was moved to its present site and saved. Today, thousands of visitors per year enter these 200-year-old doors. These huge cypress beams were harvested from the property and supported this massive structure during its move. Today, they form the ceiling of the ground floor dining room. Rope moldings and red clay brick are typical of local construction. The red mahogany bar seen here was built in the late 1700s by a cabinet maker in New Orleans. It was fitted with a marble footrail, then shipped upriver to become the bar in the first tavern in this city. A special feature is this hand-carved molding. The stained glass panel was added many years later. Every now and again, patrons visiting from all over the world have indicated a presence in this building. Regardless of the story, there's always one thing in common. The spirit lives in the attic. Is there a ghost in this building? Well, I remember the young couple from Venezuela who left their table in the middle of the meal, only to be found right here an hour later talking to a spirit they called Emma. I also remember the doubting patron who had a crystal water glass explode before their very eyes. But I'll never forget the night that I personally was called out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning to close every window and door that had blown open mysteriously during the night. Is there a ghost in this building? I won't be hanging around to find out. Many people think the ghost is Emma Viala, the daughter-in-law of this handsome gentleman, the pirate Jean Lafitte. The restaurant contains a wonderful art collection of notable Louisiana artists, including George Rodrigue. In upstairs Goodwin Room, these Louisiana primitives are scenes depicting life on Viala Plantation. They were painted by the well-known artist Marion Goodwin. This picture shows Christmas bonfires on the Mississippi River levee. The restaurant grows many of its own herbs, vegetables, and edible flowers, just as plantations did so many years ago. These late-season peppers are grown for seeds only and will be replanted next season. Many plantations have their own smokehouse, and so does Viala. This one is kept in operation daily, producing specialty Louisiana ingredients for the kitchen. Pecan smoked andouille, sugar-cured ham, ducks, and seafood are often found hanging in the smokehouse. The old Viala Plantation is just one more example of a Louisiana plantation home spared from destruction. We can all thank modern technology for saving Lafitte's Landing Restaurant or the old Viala Plantation. I remember as a young boy running out to watch the basement being torn away from the house and then that massive structure loaded on a flatbed truck and carried across 5 miles of sugarcane field to be rebuilt on its present site. But this isn't the only home saved by moving it. I remember the Brogé family home, the old Bagatelle Plantation, that was carried over the Mississippi River levee and put on a barge and brought to Baton Rouge to be rebuilt as a residence. Can you imagine walking up onto the levee and seeing a barge going by with a plantation home on it? Well, I saw it, and thank God we did, because had we not known how to move them, we would have lost a lot of these homes. My guest in the kitchen today is going to be not only a good friend of mine, but a family member out from the West Coast. Vern Lanegrasse is known as the Hollywood chef out in Los Angeles. And he lived in Louisiana as a young boy and then moved out to California about 40 years ago to bring Cajun cooking to the West Coast. And we're going to talk a little bit about just what he found when he got out there. We're going to really enjoy reliving a lot of those memories. Now, one of the dishes that I'm going to do for you is a dish that I do a lot at the restaurant today, but very typical of the foods of the Cajun Triangle. I'm going to do a velouté, or a soup that's made with boiled crawfish, corn, and potatoes. But before I do that, I want you to come on over to my little stock pot, because I want to show you exactly what is a crawfish boil, because we need to do this before I can even do the soup. Here you can see the corn, these big, beautiful crawfish. This is about 20 to the pound right here. These are large ones. And, of course, I've got some nice little potatoes here. And we would boil these for about, well, I guess somewhere 12 to 14 minutes when we're doing a crawfish boil. And to flavor it, we would use this little package right here. This is actually some pickling spice, all the great spices that give the crawfish boil its traditional flavor. We drop that into the stock pot. And once all of these things have come to a rolling boil, then we would sit under a big pecan tree with all of these things and have a nice big platter of boiled crawfish. But often at the end of the crawfish boil, there's a lot left over, and sometimes we make omelets with them and all different kinds of things. But I want you to look into my bowl here, because this is what I do when I have some of these crawfish left over. As you can see, I have the potatoes. I've actually taken the potatoes and peeled them and cubed them, and here I have the corn. Sometimes I actually leave it on the cob. Other times I cut it off, as I did here. And here's the crawfish that's been peeled from the shell. And sometimes when I don't have enough, I'll just go out and buy some of the pound packs like this of fresh crawfish. We have this all over Louisiana during the crawfish season. Now, to make this soup, we must reserve the stock, because that's where the true flavor of the crawfish boil originates, right in that pot. But I'm going to kick up this heat on my black iron pot, and I'm going to make a little bit buttery flavored oil into the bottom of it, because I'm going to make a little roux of flavored vegetables to begin the velouté. Now, I'm going to start off the soup with typical Louisiana vegetables, as we always do, a little trinity of flavors: onion, celery, bell pepper. And this will be a cream-based soup. Velouté means velvety, and it will be a very velvety-looking soup. Onion, celery, bell pepper. I'm going to put some red bell peppers in there, too. After all, this is crawfish. And then I'm going to throw some garlic down in here, some nice chopped garlic to give me that good flavor. And then I can just saute all of this around. I want to wilt all of these vegetables just for a second, because this soup is going to cook for about another 20 minutes or so, so I don't have to cook them all the way here. But once they're sauteed, then I can start to add some of the flavors out of the crawfish boil pot. I'm going to put some of these potatoes, not about half of them I'll put in, and then about half of the crawfish. And you can imagine all of the great flavor from that pot going right down into the black iron pot at this point. I'm going to add the corn, and look how pretty all of these colors are as they come together down in here. And then I have to make a roux. So to make the roux, I'm going to sprinkle in some white flour. I'm just going to put a couple tablespoons of white flour to hold all of this together, making a white Creole roux, or the French style of blonde roux is all I'm actually doing here. So I'm going to put 2 or 3 heaping spoons. Of course, remember that one of these will thicken about 2 cups of stock, so just measure your stock out. And I can swirl this into the butter to pick it up, that buttery flavored oil, and you can see how it makes the white roux right down in the bottom of that black iron pot. And look again how nice all of these flavors come together in that roux. Now, to start the soup, I'm going to come back to this stock pot, because I'm going to want to go right down into this stock. I'm going to put a strainer down in here because that'll keep all of those ingredients from getting into my way. And I'm going to put the hot stock right down into my soup pot, and imagine all of the flavor of the crawfish boil now going right down in the black iron Dutch oven here with the corn and potatoes. And once all of the stock is in, then I can stir it around. And again, you want to put as much stock as will be necessary to make a really nice velouté. You don't want to put too much, obviously, to get it too watery, but you want it velvety, as you can see this is right here. Now, once that's in and I bring it back up to a little simmer, I don't want to boil it too much because all of these ingredients are already cooked. So I want to just bring it to a light simmer, and then I can put the rest of my ingredients in. Let's assume that this has been cooking now for about 15 or 20 minutes. I'll add the rest of my crawfish, the rest of my corn, which has all of that great flavor, some more of the potatoes, and the potatoes will also thicken the dish. Remember, as the potatoes cook, they will certainly thicken all of this. And now I can add some green onions, parsley, just down right into the stock. You can see it's coming to a simmer already. A little touch of salt, but not too much because the stock is already full flavored. With that little pickling spice bag, there's a lot of pepper in it too, so you don't want it so seasoned that you can't eat this soup, that you have to be very careful. To finish it, I'm going to add a little touch of heavy whipping cream. You can use skim milk or you can use pasteurized skim milk, but just enough cream to lighten it up and smooth it out. And what I have here is the base of a great soup that's just going to simmer for another couple of minutes to get the perfect flavor of a boiled crawfish, just a really nice boiled crawfish flavor that you'd think you're on the pecan tree when you eat this, actually. That's how good it's going to be. Really nice pink color. I'm going to let this simmer for a little while, and then we're going to plate that up just in a couple of minutes. Let me lower the heat so we don't get a little bit too hot here. Okay, the next dish that I want to do for you, another very famous dish in Louisiana, even though most people don't think of lamb as a Louisiana dish because we, I guess, use so much more pork and beef and game that we don't think of lamb that much as being Cajun and Creole, but in fact it is. Lamb came to us not only from the Felicianas right above Baton Rouge, but also in the German territory on the west bank, on the west and east bank of the river outside of New Orleans. And on the platter here I have this is a loin of lamb. I've got 4 chops here, and normally you get them in an 8-bone rack, but I've already cut them into little chops. You can see how nice and lean they are, just beautiful little lamb chops. And I'm going to cook these the way we traditionally do in Louisiana with the muscadines. You can see these beautiful little muscadines here, and then I have some wild oyster mushrooms and pepper, and this will be a pepper-seared lamb chop. So what I'm going to do is in this skillet, I'm going to put a little buttery flavored oil once more because we want to, again, get something to saute these chops in. And then I'll take the chops and put them in my seasoned flour. The flour is already seasoned with salt, a little bit granulated garlic, and pepper. And this is cracked black pepper, not cayenne. I want something that's going to be more of an aromatic spice. So we'll put these in. And you notice I'm not putting any batter or anything on them. I'm just kind of dusting them to get a nice coating to protect them as I put them into the hot saute pan. Let me make sure that's all the way up there. And it's going to sear these little chops quickly, and once they sear, all of the natural juices are going to remain right in the center of that chop. And we don't want to cook them too long. We want to cook them just for a couple of minutes to get them lightly brown, lightly golden brown on one side. That'll sear in the juices on that side, and then we can just turn them over and do the same thing on the other side. 2 to 3 minutes on each side is all we want to spend on these chops. Assuming that they're be nice and brown, and you can see how quickly they brown. Look at this. Just that 1 minute is all it took in this hot skillet to already get it nice and brown. Now, I'm going to put the rest of the flavors in. I've got some oyster mushrooms. Of course, use any mushrooms that you find in your own neighborhood store. These we can actually go out and pick up in the wilds here in Louisiana. I'm going to put in some of these pretty muscadines that's got a lot of sugar flavor in them because they're nice and sweet. You can also freeze these. They freeze well. And then I'll put in some thyme and basil and a touch of rosemary, because rosemary gives this dish a really good flavor. And then I'm going to flame it in just a touch of brandy. And you have to be careful when you flame this, because, of course, with the heat in this skillet, the brandy will flame quickly. So you want to remove it off of the fire, as I do here, and put it in. And you can see how it flames right up. And once it comes to a flame like this, I can extinguish it with a little demi-glace or beef stock, veal stock. Look how nice that is. Oh, I wish you could smell the aroma coming out of this pot with the brandy and all of those nice flavors. Now, I would actually let this sit here and cook for a couple of minutes. I don't want to overcook it. I'd put a little touch of salt, a little touch of pepper, and once they're done, I would plate up about 3 of them on a plate as an entree, and we serve this dish all the time. I want to show you what it looks like when it's all done. Take a look at this service plate right here with the chops already on it. You can see how beautiful they are, and look at that nice gloss, how shiny it is with all of those wonderful flavors. The lamb chops of Viala Plantation. Now, what else would I serve with some of these on a big table with the crawfish boil on one of those pecan trees? Here you can see I have some spare ribs, and these are oven baked. I've put some nice sugar cane syrup on them and baked them in the oven. They're nice and tender. And just as we do the crawfish boil, here I have the drunken shrimp. I actually cook these in beer with a lot of herbs and spices to get this flavor, as well as smoked sausage. A wonderful dish that we serve as an appetizer or entree at the old Viala Plantation, Lafitte's Landing restaurant. Okay, now that I've showed you all of this, I got my good buddy Vern Lanegrasse. I should call him Cousin Vern, coming into the kitchen. How you doing?
Fine, how are you?
Good to see you. How you been?
Wonderful to be here.
Welcome to Cajun country.
It's wonderful to be back.
Let me tell you something. You and I
Don't tell me.
You and I talk all the time about family trees, right?
Yeah.
Now, what I have here, I have a book of the Melanson family, because
My grandmother.
Your grandmother's a Melanson. I've got Melansons in my family, and this is where we come together many years ago. And I'm going to give you this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. You can look through that and find out exactly where
I'll be my reading when I get back to California.
How's
every
everything
night.
going?
Wonderful, couldn't be better.
Remember the other night when we were talking about all the beans and the influence of the Spanish bringing the many different beans to Louisiana? I told you about the bean salad.
Right.
Let me show it to you
And
right
I
here.
believe in eating beans. A lot of people don't, but I do. I love beans.
Well, look at these here. I've got red beans, white, and
favorite.
black beans.
Yes.
And they've all been just poached in a little chicken stock, nice and tender, very colorful. And to make the dressing here, I want you to pour, in fact, I'll pour a little bit wine in my Creole mustard and mayonnaise, and you've got about, let's say a 1/4 cup of olive oil. I'll take that from you. And how about stirring that dressing up?
I have to ask you, what are those little orange things on top of the beans?
Little orange things on top of the beans. That's carrots. We chop up the carrots.
Okay.
And this is
All right.
garlic and all of those things. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the beans while you're stirring that, and I'm going to put these into a big bowl of Creole tomatoes. These tomatoes have already been diced. You can see how pretty they are here.
Yes, beautiful.
And I'm going to sprinkle the beans right down into it, as well as purple onions, red and yellow bell pepper, and you can put that sauce right on top.
You know, you have everything in this salad that I love.
Is that right? Well, go ahead and, hey, I'll tell you, it's got a good flavor. I'm going to put a little bit more cracked peppercorns and a little salt, and I'm also going to spice it up, because we both like a little spice.
Oh,
I'm going to put a little Louisiana pepper sauce.
Louisiana pepper
Isn't that a
sauce.
nice salad? I could take this and put it over a bed of lettuce, or I could just serve it right out of a big bowl like this again under the pecan tree with the boiled crawfish.
Wouldn't that be
Look
great?
good.
Look how beautiful.
It is, and we're going to, I'll tell you, we're going to save this for a little later.
We're going to taste
Have a
it.
seat. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk a little bit more about California and Cajun cooking. When you got out to California, now I know you went to Los Angeles about 40 years ago or
That's right.
so. What was the perception of the foods of Louisiana back then?
Well, I tell you, Los Angeles was really a desert when it came to food. And I arrived with my black iron skillet, my little drip coffee pot, a 5-pound can of Louisiana coffee and chicory, and some red beans and some rice. And I just set up housekeeping in a very small apartment with 2 hot plates. And people really didn't know anything very much about Cajun Creole cooking. And so I started with a shrimp Creole. That's the way I started with them.
And everybody went crazy.
Yeah, they loved it. They really loved it.
Well, talking about the plantations now, we're talking about Viala Plantation
Right.
today. Was there any perception about life on the plantations of South Louisiana and California?
Well, I think everybody said, Gone with the Wind had happened, of course, in the late 30s and the 40s, and there was that terrific romantic thing that people brought into it. And I think when they think of Louisiana and the plantations, they think of romance and song and dance. And, of course, New Orleans has always been a party town. And along the river, when you tell them stories that I remember my father tell me about the river, it was a joyous life and a joyous time along the river with those beautiful homes.
What about specialty ingredients available? At what point in time out in Los Angeles, which is a big food town today,
Right.
did you start to see things like andouille and crawfish start to appear?
Not until the 60s, in the late 60s. You really, I had to get most things from here. My folks would mail them to me, or I would go back with a suitcase full of things, you know. And then finally, if you went into the Afro-American neighborhoods, you could get a few things, but not what you can today. Today I can get anything I want practically, except lump crab meat. That's the one thing I can't get.
Boy, call me, I'll send you
Okay,
something.
fine.
The Hollywood chef, everybody refers to you in Los Angeles as the Hollywood chef. How did you get that name?
Because I was such a good host at home, and I entertained a lot of celebrities. And when I decided to take food and wine as a vocation rather than avocation, we decided to call me, not the Hollywood host, we didn't like that, so we called me the Hollywood chef. And I'm noted for giving parties with the famous ladies of the silver screen.
Did you, you worked for NBC for a long time?
I was an executive, yes.
You host your own radio show called The Hollywood Chef.
That's right. I also had my own television show on Channel 52 before I knew you. but before we met.
Today you also write a column.
Yes, I've written a weekly column for 20 years, John.
What's your signature dish out there when you have people coming over and you want to serve them Louisiana food?
Well, I always do remoulade, shrimp remoulade or crab remoulade. People love that, you know. And I do any of the chicken and fish dishes, and I love to do a snapper with the tomato sauce, you know, the Creole sauce. I love fish, so I do a lot of fish. And I do bread pudding. Everybody loves the bread pudding. I don't think I can make enough bread pudding to please people. They can't believe how good my bread pudding is. And it's a very simple recipe, as you know.
What about Cajun cooking today? Does it travel well from, say, Louisiana to Los Angeles or anywhere else? Can we pick up all these things and make them work well in another area?
I was talking to several people about this, and I think it can. The one thing that Ella Brennan said to me in New Orleans was, it's the water down here makes the difference. And I think maybe she might be right.
She may very well
But I use bottled water anyway, but I have no problem with doing it.
Well, what's the future hold for you out there? What's some of the upcoming things?
Well, I have a book that's going to be out hopefully next year called The California Cajun. And we're going to be doing another radio show, and I'm going to continue writing and lecturing and giving classes. And I'm going to go back and next week be a guest chef at a restaurant one night, do a New Orleans experience, we call it.
Well, I can't wait to come back out. Every time I come there, we have a great time together.
I want you to come,
well,
and we'll cook together.
Thank you so much for coming over here all the way from California to be a part of this. And take the book back on the Melançons. And
thank you.
And I'm going to come see you soon. And
Thank you.
all of you for stopping by as we continue to cook up more of these great Taste of Louisiana. Let's take a look at this soup over here.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
Chef John Folse's Plantation Celebrations, Recipes from Our Louisiana Mansions, is a full-color 335-page book containing food history, recipes, and over 150 photographs from these southern landmarks. For your copy, send a check or money order for $28.50 to Louisiana Public Broadcasting, 7860 Anselmo Lane, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70810. Or use your credit card by calling toll-free 1-800-973-7246.